Welcome to the Home Services Summit webinar series. Our whole goal on these webinars is to give you guys content specific to the home services franchising sector. So today I'm really excited about having our guests on. We'll be pulling out a bunch of data and information, and I'm looking forward to having that shared with you guys. Before we get going, I'll have a few housekeeping items and make you all aware about our annual summit that's coming up in February the 4th and 5th. If you don't mind, we'll be sending out a survey after the event, after this webinar, with I think we've got about 10 or 11 topics that we'll be speaking on, and feedback as to what's the most valuable. And we'll be organizing our day according to what that is from your feedback. So please do that for me. This event is sponsored by ProNexis, a company that I run. I'm Scott Abbott, the host of the show. And my background is I've been a franchisor for about 15 years, one of the founders of 5 Star Painting. And I own a brand called 5 Star Bath Solutions. We're in the bath renovation business. And ProNexis is a solution that supplies home services companies with a voice, chat, text, and instant booking solution. And we've got Kieth on the show here from FranConnect, and I'll do his intro for you. Go ahead, Kieth. Say hi.
Saying hello, everybody.
Kieth is recognized as one of the leaders in franchising. I've known Kieth forever. Besides being an amazing musician, he's an amazing businessman as well. He has worked closely with executive boards and leadership teams that make up a number of FranConnect's portfolio of 800 brands and 150,000 franchise locations. Kieth is focused on helping franchisors get to their desired goals from increasing franchise sales, improving franchisee profitability, increasing franchisee satisfaction, and making and keeping customers. He has accomplished this through a blend of his extensive expertise combined with technology, data, analytics, and thought leadership. He's also an author of a book called Franchise Book of Mentors. And we've got Michelle.
Hey, guys.
Michelle Rowan, the president and COO of Franchise Business Review, a market research and consulting company specialized in franchisee and employee satisfaction, as well as franchise relation issues. She's the chair of IFA's Women's Franchisee Committee and a certified franchise executive. She has facilitated CEO performance groups and executive networking groups within the franchise industry and regularly speaks at industry events. She and her husband also own a tasting room and a brewery in Kittery, Maine. It's kind of a cool fun fact.
Yes, small business owner, not a franchisee.
Yes, yeah, and it's the business. I can't stress how happy I am to have you both on our series today. As we've been preparing for this event, the three of us have gone over some of the data you guys have compiled. I know you've gone through and you've taken information from franchisees' feedback to their franchisors, from the hundreds and hundreds of those that have given you that feedback, as well as Kieth taking his data from FranConnect and looking at the results that have come from all of the franchisees that are in the FranConnect system. Why don't we just go ahead and just talk about that real quick, Kieth and Michelle. How big of the sample size are we dealing with? Where's this information coming from that we're going to pull some of the findings?
So I'll start with the FBR data. So we've worked with over 1,100 brands for the 15, 16 years that we've been doing research, but we try and look at everything within a 12-month period. So overall, we've surveyed about 300 brands in this past 12-month period. In home services specifically, we are looking at 37 brands with 2,600 plus responses. We invite any franchise system that has at least 10 franchisees open and operating to participate in the research. We offer a no-cost version of it, so it's not a limitation to who's paying us. It really is open to any franchise system that's at least 10. And then we work with some really large scale brands as well. So that's kind of the data set that we're working with for today's data I share.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Michelle. Kieth?
I'm going to be relying on information that was specific to FranConnect's Franchise Sales Index. And this is data that is coming from 76 home service making up 107,000 leads just in the report. Has always been an annual report. I've broken this into quarterly segments now.
All our listeners are here as well. It's fine. Okay, good. Go ahead.
107,000 leads come through. Just the brands down to a pretty equal distribution by size of system. So for systems that have 10 or less locations, there's 21% that make up that group. Emerging, which is going to be up to 76 or 75 locations, is 27%. The mid-market up to 200 is 27%, and enterprise brands make up 25% of the sample size.
Awesome. So we've got a lot of good data to pull from. Let's get into some of the findings real quick then. So Michelle, one of the findings is that overall home service franchise systems score higher on all categories. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? And maybe speak to that.
Yeah, I think, again, we're looking at a 12-month period. So I think in general, home services probably does well above other segments of franchising that you think about, because there's a simplicity to the model of what you're running. And they're usually companies that have people out in the field. So I think they're going to be faster to adapt technology as far as that communication between the person that's in the field and the corporate office. And we'll talk about that more later. But I think specifically to this year, we've seen some franchise systems really struggling, big box, lots of real estate. They're paying big rents. They have seats that aren't being filled. Home service specifically has really thrived through this because people are still needing to have things done and having time, being at home to make time to get this stuff done that's been on their list for a while. They're just, I think that you're seeing your franchisees in those systems are still really busy and making money, which is two of the most important things.
And I mean, those are great facts to bring out when you're going through Discovery Day and you're bringing in candidates into your brand to highlight the fact that home services, typically the franchisees are scoring higher in those areas. Yep. So thanks for sharing that. So Kieth, one of the most important things a franchisor can do to help the brand is simply grow the network, right? The size really doesn't matter in this industry. Can you break down for us where home service brands are getting their leads from and their sales?
I sure can, Scott. First, portals are still a very, very viable source for leads. I'll get a little later into our presentation in terms of talking about those conversion rates, but portals were absolutely the largest source of leads, representing about 44%. Besides portals, websites continue to be given attribution for first touch. Social media, we've seen social media did particularly well in the second quarter and dropped a little bit in the third quarter. We see that marketing is getting progressively increasing in terms of the amount of lead attribution, meaning that it's actually stepped up greater in the second and third quarter in the home services category than it did in the first, which is really interesting to me because I think that that's speaking to the viability of what we're all seeing as a pandemic resistant category to see that happen, because in almost every other category we're looking at, we're seeing a steady decline, which was probably more of a reflection of people cutting back on their marketing budgets and spends. Franchise referral consultants have been a very viable source for leads as well as deals, and they're actually running greater than they were in the first quarter. And referrals in this category are also doing well, better in the second quarter than prior to the pandemic, and even the third quarter is doing better than it was in the first, which is pretty astounding. Organic or inbound leads are still a viable source, and squeaking in here is trade shows, just a reflection of the fact that people are still, trying to source out whether or not the virtual trade shows can work anywhere as they did with the in-person. They're not at this moment in time, unfortunately, but there's still a handful of leads. Popular and viable tools in the toolbox at this time.
Great facts. In fact, I know that from my own personal experience in our bathroom renovation business, we've tended to lean a lot on using brokers as a means of expanding our network. And I've sit on a couple boards of a few franchisors, and one of those companies, they've been crushing it on social media. So the fact you brought that up and the fact that we're seeing some growth there It should be for those listeners who aren't currently using social media, and maybe one of those things just not aware of as a means of finding candidates. It's been a performer for a lot of brands I'm aware of. So maybe back to you, Keith, real quick. Do you think that COVID has changed franchise sales, and what do you think the numbers are telling you?
It has. There's no question. First of all, I think that because of the unemployment realities right now, we're actually seeing, especially in the home services category, increases in quality of the leads that are coming through and the availability of those leads. But one of the most astounding things that I'm seeing is the fact that people are relying more on trusted sources. Referrals, we're seeing conversion rates the likes that we haven't seen before, and brokers, like you just said, Scott, brokers or franchise referral consultants are actually the best performing source of leads that become deals that we're seeing right now. And I think that, getting back to your question in terms of how has COVID impacted, I think that people are really relying more on those trusted resources to make recommendations. They're relying on the franchisees in terms of those validations in ways in the past that they may have just taken for granted. I know that we all know that within the franchise disclosure document, you have the contact information for all existing franchisees and those that left in the previous year. But I'm also hearing anecdotally that more of the prospects are actually relying on reaching out and getting actually greatly improved references or turning to systems such as the franchise business review system to get validation of those types of metrics.
Yeah, maybe that's a great point, Keith. Let's go back to Michelle on that point. Michelle, are you seeing that franchisee satisfaction has been impacted by COVID? What are the numbers telling you on that?
Yeah, so I have a little bit on that sales side to also weigh in on what Keith is talking about, and then I'll talk about the satisfaction piece as well. In that, when I'm talking to my clients and I'm talking to people that are working development directly for the brands and for outsourced development sources, brokers, and I'm always asking these questions. And what they're saying is, there's more candidates coming in that are looking at the lower end investment model. So the candidates are still looking that don't have to make a huge real estate investment, don't see it as a bigger risk. So we're seeing more people coming in that might not necessarily have thought of franchising before. And now they're kind of interested in that. Either they've been laid off, which everyone talks about, and so they're looking for that replacement, or they've decided that they want to have more control over it. So you're seeing more people coming into the funnel that maybe wouldn't have been there before, but they're really targeting those lower cost models, the less risk that's in their head. And so I think that that's also how we're seeing it impact thing in franchising. There's been a lot of bad parts of it, but the good thing, you're not around, or you're not going to make it through this year. I mean, if you did not have the right systems, it's going to shake out those brands that were not doing things the right way or had a profitable model. And so now what we're seeing is that there's a huge differentiator from the brands that stepped up support and were able to work with their franchisees to understand, how do we keep your doors open? How do we keep your lights on? And showed that they were hearing the franchisees as far as what they need to keep their business running, and relaxed in the areas of compliance that didn't matter, that they could just set aside and say, okay, let's scrap what we've always held you to and talk about what can we modify to make sure that you're still bringing money in. And from the franchisee side, what we saw was, okay, we're gonna change. I don't want to say the pivot word because everyone is over it. But we're going to change the way we do things. The franchisor came out with these ideas, and the franchisees responded a lot quicker in making those changes and trying those things. So that collaboration between franchisees and franchisors and that speed to actually adapt really, really increased, which is huge for franchising, because I think every franchisor can really relate to the comment that we have this great idea, we've sold it to our franchisees, but they're still resisting making those changes or doing those things. So we need to find those ways that we can continue to collaborate and get the franchisees to adapt, because they're quickly seeing that the franchisor has their best interests and is understanding how to shift that model or that way of doing business to make their model stronger. On the validation side, so I know that a lot of people on this call are very focused on the side because there's still a lot of interest per segment. There's this term that I'm sure a lot of you guys read about that's called FUD. And it's everybody has that fear, uncertainty, or doubt. And that's really how we're seeing it's impacted the candidate, in that the other side of the people I'm talking to are that that's great that there's the quantity of candidates coming in. And to Kieth's point, they're in it. They get what the value of the brand, what the model can bring to them, but they're stuck in the funnel because they are scared. They don't know what 2021 of COVID. So how do you react to that? And how do you get your candidate through that reconciliation of, I'm making the right decision, that I'm assessing the right amount of risk, and that I'm ready to do this. So I think that's the hurdle that development folks have to really focus on, is providing enough information, or to Kieth's point, trusted sources saying this is a good idea versus your salesperson telling them it's a good idea. That's what people are looking at. So to Scott, to your point, if you're not on social media, if the candidate found you somewhere online, they are looking at all of your social media. They are looking at everything that's out there. So you better make sure that you're there to talk with them, to engage with them, and make it easy for them to find that information out about you.
So if I can also tag on to what Michelle was saying, is that I'm seeing in the system, however, a little divergence in terms of one of the data points. I'm seeing that across all types of brands and all types of systems, that the duration of time it's taking to close deals is actually taking longer. Now, I didn't break that out for this particular session, and that could be also a byproduct of banks being behind in terms of lending right now, which could be a factor. But I think that something that I've been reporting on for many, many years now, at least the last 6 years, is the need and the importance of having campaigning that is nurturing leads at all stages through the funnel. And I'm still not seeing that even within our own system. We have the capabilities of delivering that, but I'm seeing that basic generic types of information instead of developing content based on where somebody is at in their stage of the buying cycle. So I really strongly encourage you to get together with your marketing teams and to develop viable campaigns based on, for example, if somebody's in the discovery day stage, what to expect when it comes to a discovery day, or how to conduct, validations, or one of the most important, which is getting back to validations and trusted sources, of actually taking videos and or written commentary from your promoters within your system and making it part of your email campaigning. Use it on social, use it on your websites. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just to speak to a personal experience, when we went through the recession in 2009, 10, we had a massive increase in interest because of unemployment, right? But we had a problem with getting financing back then. This environment where employment's gone up and there is financing is this kind of the golden connection of both those. So I do think that franchise sales will continue to increase, leads will continue to increase, and we're in a good position being the home services sector. To that point, I want to just maybe, Michelle, have you speak a little bit about what we're seeing around franchisee satisfaction with their brands and how that compares to maybe other franchise concepts, right? Yeah, I know we looked at some data on that. You want to maybe share with some more on that for us?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to jump back in on the development topic, but I know that's what really all franchisors care about. And when Kieth was saying the last points, I was just part of the panels that judged the development websites for 1851's project that they did. And the difference between the franchisors that were talking about the impact of COVID on their model right on their site versus the ones that didn't acknowledge COVID was kind of existing, that's another missed opportunity. So I think in home services, you fared well. Tell that story, have your franchisees telling that story, to Kieth's point on, you don't live in a bubble. Everyone knows that COVID has impacted you in some way. So if it has changed your revenue, even if it's gone down, talk about it, or talk about the things that you're doing differently right there so that they know that you're not talking about it for a reason. So I would say that too. So as far as, Scott, you introed and said, home services is outperforming every area of the questions. And I did share the questions with you, Scott. You're welcome to share it with everyone so that they can know what we're asking about. But we ask about things that we think are just structurally important within a franchise system, whether you have a retail brick and mortar space or you're service-based. So training and support, leadership, financial opportunity, technology, communication. So those are the overall things that we're asking about, which home service brands outperformed every category. Specifically, what I think you picked up on was the home services brands are being rated 9% higher in technology, which is a big increase compared to the overall industry average. So overall, how do you rate the effectiveness of the technology within your franchise system? So this would be your intranet platform. This would be the tools that you're using, the communications between corporate and franchisees, and the tools you have in place for franchisees to connect with each other. So thinking about that way, they're really, really outperforming in that area. The other side too that we talked about was we ask a question around local market competitiveness, and we talk about how does your brand compare to similar businesses in your local area? So that would be franchised or non-franchise models. And 84.9% of franchisees rated that their brand was above average. So the perception of the franchisees within home services is that their brand is top of mind for consumers, or is kind of the better choice within their local area. So I think those are the ones that spoke out. These are similar in line to the benchmark, but I think that they're important when you're talking about your franchise system, which is what we saw through COVID, is that I said, I'm a small business owner. My husband and I own a brewery. So we're in one of the hardest hit areas from COVID, but I got to see how you navigated everything that happened this year from a non-franchise standpoint and from a franchise standpoint, and the way that franchisees rallied around each other, in addition to the way that franchisors' corporate teams really rallied to get correct information out there, to get money through PPP, to make sense of all the chaos. That was huge for franchising. And to be a franchisee versus to do it alone, I was answering a lot of questions from my friends that are business owners because it was really, really convoluted. And I think a lot of people felt everybody was just making it up as they went along, including our government. So the other piece that I wanted to pull out was that 73.4% of franchisees in home services felt that their fellow franchisees were participating in company programs, conversations, events, and 85.5 strongly agreed that the franchisees were supportive of each other. So as you're talking to candidates about your network, that is what you want to tell them, that they're coming in and they're able to connect with other people that are doing the same thing or have gone through the bad parts, and they can learn from, rather than going through that or making that mistake from the start.
Yeah, community is so important. And it's definitely something that I think is one of the big reasons why people buy a franchise. They don't want to go it alone. They want to have support from corporate, and they want to have peers they can rely on to grow the business. So helping facilitate that as a franchisor should be key, clearly. Kieth, let's come back to you on some of the franchise sales numbers. I know that when I looked at some of the numbers, I thought was really valuable. Could be some benchmarking that franchisors in the home services sector could be using to know what they should expect, right, around conversion rates and different sources. So maybe let's dig a little bit more into the numbers on the broker sales side. What networks have what closing rates? Do you think the pandemic's affected that? Maybe give us some information on that for us.
Absolutely. First thing I would say is it has proven to be one of the highest closing effectiveness mediums that we've seen in the channel. It's averaging right now 5.4% versus in the home services category, there's an average closing effectiveness rate of 1.1. Okay, so imagine though, we've got 5.4%. And of the leaders, I have to give, I think that we have at least one of these folks attending today. I think I saw a little message pop referencing Red Boswell, who many of us know. Congratulations, because IFPG Group actually had the highest conversion rate of any of the brokers in the most recent quarter. These ping pong, and like I said, I've got a delineation where it's quarter by quarter. But for the third quarter, with a 6.5% conversion rate, was IFPG. Second was FranConnect at 6.3%, and FranChoice came in at 5.9% for the top three. In fourth position, we had FranServe at 5.6%. So all of these, I can tell you just from looking and tracking these numbers for many, many years now, these are perpetually the leaders, continue to be so. And again, I think that this speaks to the fact that, again, from the buyer's perspective and the buyer journey, This is something that they're not paying for. It's a trusted professional resource. It's a matchmaking service of sorts. It doesn't look like they have a vested interest in any one particular brand. And I think it's really resonating with the audience right now. So home services is crushing it with brokers right now, plain and simply.
Yeah, I'd love to just restate that. But before I do, I want to just point out that in this webinar, there is a section called Q&A at the very bottom of your screen. I've got some questions coming in already. Feel free as the call's going on, if you've got questions you want answered, go ahead and put them in there. You just said that roughly 6.5% to 6.5% of the leads that a home service brand gets in franchise sales, they're going to close to a sale right now. I think it's a great benchmark to know for your franchise sales team. And you said the average is roughly 1.5%. Is that right?
1.1% for all media sources, for all channels. Okay, so it's still the same leads equals one deal. But when you're talking about 6%, et cetera, my math isn't great on this this particular front. But I'm going to tell you, looking across all of these top performers, you're looking approximately 15 leads equals a deal compared to 100 leads equaling a deal.
Yeah.
And for franchisors, and I have no vested interest in this. I'm a long-term franchisor, been in the business for 47 years now. But I'll tell you that some of the greatest successes I had was going with the brokers at a time in which people just said that they couldn't justify the fact that they're paying between $15,000 and $50,000 on a per deal basis. But you got to remember, you're only paying in the event that it results in a close, whereas all other lead sources, there's no guarantee if you're doing traditional marketing that you're going to see that culminate in a sale. And I'm tracking it, and the numbers again, they just don't come close to these numbers.
Yeah. It's great information for all of our listeners for sure. Kieth, would you mind maybe speaking about portals? I know that's been, they've been around for a very long time. I'd love to get what you're seeing there in the numbers and maybe with some benchmarks around what people should expect, from buying 100 leads, what they would close in the portal area.
Yeah. So portals, I need to say that even though they traditionally have a much lower conversion rate, I know for all brands and all industries, it has been running between 0.2 and 0.3. But I will tell you that portals over the last 3 quarters are consistently stepping up in the home services category. In the first quarter, pre-COVID, it was rounding up to 0.3. It was 0.25. In the second quarter, it was 0.31. And in the third quarter, it's increased to 0.40. So it's certainly viable, but you're getting a lot of leads, but your conversion rates are lower, but it is still incrementally creating and is the number one source it wasn't for home services. I think for home services, forward being done, but again, we're throwing spaghetti against the wall, and some of it's going to stick and some of it isn't. But I wanted to call out, Scott, if it's all right with you, I'll be very specific in naming names.
Yeah. Please, yeah.
I'd like to say that Biz Buy Sell is doing remarkably well for the home services category and has actually been higher than pre-COVID in the second and the third quarter. But the third quarter was the biggest spike that we've seen yet, with Biz Buy Sell coming in 1.2% closing effectiveness rate. That's remarkable. It's actually over-indexing the balance. It's Gator at 0.33, Franchise Opportunities Network at 0.31. This is rounding out top 5, and Franchise Help was 0.16, or round up to 0.2 there. So if I'm not mentioning it, it's because the numbers are smaller than 0.2%. So I have, and if anybody would like the actual slides of the presentation, happy to make those available, or reach out to me at Kieth@FranConnect.com, and we'll get them to you. But that shows every single one of these brands, so what percentage and what number of deals they generated for the home services category. I want to make I don't want anybody to think that I'm damning with faint praise when I talk about the fact is this is still the second highest source of leads in the home services category. Directly through the portal, some people are going to your websites after they researched you, because otherwise, unless you're marketing the heck out of your, driving people to your website, people are doing research on these portals oftentimes. So another viable tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, I look at that as another golden nugget, right? I mean, to define a lead category that you can close 1% of them. And I don't know what people are paying for the leads in the biz buy sell area, but if it's in that 40, 50 range, you do the math pretty quick. I'm sure people would love to take advantage of that. So please, Michelle and Kieth, if you want to go ahead in the chat right now and just put your email addresses in there. So if anyone has questions around the numbers that came from this report, they can go ahead and reach out to you individually. That'd be great. Appreciate that. And then we'll come back to Michelle.
Jump in on some of the stuff Kieth said, if that's okay.
Yeah. Please go ahead, Michelle.
So what I always say is it's the time to decide to fill out that form to you. To what Kieth said, when you make a large purchase online, when you buy anything, you look in different areas, you talk to other people. So the best thing you can do is have your development person that connects with the person, ask where they remember seeing you, because it's not always where that lead form came in. It can be that they saw you and looked at you in 4 different places, and that's where they finally triggered the lead. So ask that question of folks. And then the other thing I say is, especially emerging brands, it's great to work with brokers, because like Kieth said, you don't pay unless they close the deal. So that's a fine strategy to start with. And then you can start understanding, okay, how can we maybe not rely so much on brokers? But the idea is that the one thing that is in Kieth that's doing well might work for you, or the one thing that's the lowest data might also work for you. It's different for every brand. So just track it. Be really diligent about tracking where stuff is coming from and what's getting you the sale, and don't focus just on what's working for one person, because it's different for everybody. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, agreed, Michelle. Absolutely agree with you on that. Okay, so coming back to Michelle on some of the numbers you're seeing around franchisee validation of their purchases and how they view having bought a franchise. Some of this data, I know when we were doing franchise sales at 5 Star Painting, we used FBR to do an audit of our system. We would frequently include the report from that to our candidates. They could see how we rated against other home service concepts and so forth. Maybe just speak to what you see in the numbers around home services and the franchisee satisfaction with their purchase.
Yeah, so, and we also got a question that asked about, for a brand that wants to improve the process with their franchisees for better validation, what are recommendations that would be a needle mover? In our survey, the largest correlation when we look at our survey data to company FDDs, so we're looking at the top quartile of our data and then the growth numbers in an FDD, is the I trust my franchisor question. It's higher than the financial question. So I think that's where you have to start, is they have to believe that you have their best interests in heart, and that this is a partnership to help their bottom line grow and help the brand grow, that they can't feel that you're just looking out for the overall growth. And especially with existing franchisees, it's like when you bring your second baby home, they think all the attention's on the new baby, and what about me? So you need to balance your growth with the support of your franchisee, or franchise brand, which can be very hard, because you're kind of building for that growth and waiting for it, or you're kind of bootstrapping it until you have more royalties coming in to kind of build out your team. So balancing that, and then you have to build trust, because no matter how great your ideas and your initiatives are, if you try and roll them out and they don't believe that this is going to help them, they're not going to implement, they're going to fight you. So that's the stuff that you have to work on. What are the things that you can promise to deliver on, and then do it? Beat their expectation, communicate. And that's how you'll start building that relationship with them. And then the other stuff will move a lot quicker, like asking them to spend more money on marketing and technology. So Scott, back to your question about franchisees and how their rate of financial opportunity of business satisfaction, very much in line with our overall scores for this area. But one of the opportunities, I think, if you think you're doing it well within your brand, or to talk about, is the marketing and promotions question that we ask. That's one of the lowest rated questions for all industries, and it is the lowest rated question for home service brands. And a lot of that can be attributed to that a business owner just always wants more marketing help, but some of it can also be really being clear about what you guys are doing with their marketing dollars, their ad fund, and what the expectation is of the franchisee to do marketing on their own in their local market area. I think there tends to be a lot of confusion when you join a franchise system. You might think the franchisor is going to do everything to bring the customer to me. So really setting that expectation up front as far as what's their responsibility and how will their own marketing dollars impact their business, and then what's the brand's help or support in that marketing area. That can be really powerful. And then if they only know your brand, they don't know what's happening in other franchise systems. They don't know what type of marketing you get for what kind of dollars. So just providing context to them so that they can see if you feel like you're really doing a lot more than other brands, that can be a big differentiator for when you're talking to a candidate and bringing them in and what you guys are doing for them. So when we ask the fees I pay to my franchisor are fair in home services, 52.5% of franchisees agree or strongly agree with that statement. And 17% disagree or strongly disagree. So I think it's common that people just want more for the money they're paying you. So just being really clear in that expectation setting with far to get for those dollars can be helpful. Total investment into my business, including both time and money, 63% agreed or strongly agreed that the fees that they pay, that the investment that was told to them through the development process, which includes what your corporate team is telling them, what the franchisees are telling them when they call to validate. So 63 agree with that statement that the investment was what they thought it would be, and 17% disagreed or strongly disagreed with that. When we ask them today, how is the financial opportunity of your business? In home services, 46.7% said strong or very strong, 36.7% said moderate, and 17% said weak or very weak. And then when you look at the long-term growth opportunity for home services brands, which this is huge, 72.7% feel the long-term growth opportunity is very strong to strong, and only 6% said that it's weak. So there's a lot of optimism among home service brands and franchisees within those brands.
You know, I'm surprised one of your questions wasn't if they want to pay more royalties. I just don't know why that wasn't on there. I'm sure people are just begging to do that. But if I could just maybe speak to a personal experience, when we launched 5 Star Painting, we thought it was a competitive advantage to not have an ad fund charged, even though it was in our contract. So we used to sell franchises saying, oh, you know, we don't have any ad fund fees, editors do. Horrible mistake. And to your point on this survey, franchisees want marketing support. They want campaigns that can help them grow their business. So when we launched 5 Star Bath Solutions, we had it in there from the very beginning. We developed campaigns. We've got funds to develop campaigns now to do that for franchisees. It's just doing amazing things for our brand. And it was from that learning of like, don't, you know, whatever you do not charge your ad fund. Charge the full amount at the beginning and just give back value. Up here with one last question, and we'll go to Q&A. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I was just saying, when you don't have it and then you try
and Scott, I want to tag onto that for one moment. I also want to tell you that I've done broad surveying in terms of attitudes and perceptions with hundreds and hundreds of franchisors, and I have % of revenues was adequate in effectively promoting a business. So it's one thing to say our people are contributing, but really do some soul searching as to whether or not 2% of your revenues is really going to get it done. It's certainly not going to get it done in the first year of business. And I will tell you that wiser people than I have said that that's probably between 10 and 25% of first year revenues to really get a business launched, et cetera. And after that, you know, the restaurant category, they are consistently collecting between 5 and 6% of revenues, and their revenues tend to be a lot higher than in the other home services category. So just some food for thought there.
Yeah, that's absolutely, I agree with that. Okay, we'll wrap it up with just one more question here for you, Kieth, then we'll go to the Q&A that we've had come in. to help give our listeners some benchmarks around what to expect in closing rates for franchise sales in the social area. You brought it up earlier that we're seeing some leads coming in from social advertising. I know it's a newer form of attracting candidates. Maybe just speak to the volume that's coming in there and then the close rates from that category.
I will say that the numbers are not high for some generated services category. What I have seen though is a dramatic increase in terms of the lead to deal ratios that are coming off of those. So in the first quarter and the second quarter, they both came in at 0.3%. But astounding to see that it's actually increased to 0.7% in the third quarter. So it's working, and I think that the reason that it's working in large part is because it's not a play for just saying buy my franchise. There is relevant content that's being shared that is helping people effectively do research on their categories or coming up with thoughtful things, which makes you a trusted resource. And at the end of the day, people are doing business, and this has been a cliche that people do business with people that they know and then they like and they trust. And I'm going to say trust is now going to be the first in that wheel right now. And so your ability to share information and not to varnish it, but share industry data, share your franchisees' success stories, their challenges, et cetera. And the ratio should probably be 5 instructive types of posts to 1 overt request for a sale.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just, and I can just give a plug for our annual event. We've got one of the founders of a home services franchise concept coming, and she'll be speaking about how she got to 1 million followers on YouTube just from running her business in the business she's in and posting videos of that on YouTube. And the other day I was on a call with a fellow who had started a concept in the garage industry, just modifying the garage, right? And he just did a video on it. It went viral, had 4 or 5 million views. He sold a whole bunch of franchises just from having that one video that he just posted his work. That was really cool on YouTube, and it resulted in a lot of leads for him and candidates. So I can't stress enough about how this is a new category for us. We should be using it and taking advantage of that. And like Michelle said before, what works for someone may not work for someone else, but definitely measure it, track it, watch it closely, and what is measured gets improved in most cases. So with that, I will go ahead and get some questions out here. So Michelle, this is from Liz. She wants to know, is your data published on the website? And if so, will you be sharing this data if not? So is the stuff that we
so if you're an FBR,
can they get access to that?
Yeah, if you're an FBR services, even if you want me to just kind of clean up what we used in prep, if you want to share that out with your network, that's totally fine with me. But you couldn't get it unless you have a login.
Got it. Okay. So I'll make sure that we take what we have here from, thank you for sharing the content you have shared, and put into a PDF that can be sent out with the video and the survey for you all to take advantage that we want to ask here. I think I saw something here from Susan. Her question was, for the brands that want to improve the process with Z's for better validation, what are a couple of recommendations you have that would be a needle mover?
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about with you got to focus on the relationship and the trust piece first, or you're going to be fighting them for to implement any change that you roll out or any idea that you have. So it's really important that you have strong marks on that. And to Keith's point too, it's really important now more than ever that you set realistic expectations with candidates that are coming in, and be transparent. You can't sell shiny things anymore. People won't believe it if it all looks like roses and rainbows. We're just naturally pessimistic. So be honest, and you should be trying to unsell them into your brand as much as you are selling them, just to make sure that they're gonna hustle. They're gonna do the work that needs to be done to be successful. Because otherwise, in smaller brands, I mean, Keith, I know we've sat through how many events where the franchisor is on stage and says, I wish I didn't sell to the first 7, 10 franchisees I did, because they're a nightmare. And so if it's in your gut, they're not right, walk away.
Mm-hmm. you know, maybe just to that point of around validation, I know from my experience, what we love to do is we would organize webinars like this with our, you know, top performing franchisees who are big validators of the concept. We would just organize the event, put them on the screen, walk away, and let them talk to 20, 30, 40 candidates. We still do that. And we found that by just organizing that event and allowing that to happen, it allowed for a full testimonial to occur, and also just frankly some real Q&A that needs to happen around the reality of being a franchisee. You don't want someone coming into your brand thinking it's perfect, because their expectations are going to be so high that it's hard to deliver to that. If they come in with some realism of what's really it's like to be a franchisee of your brand, and they now know what that looks like, you can meet those expectations a lot easier and ultimately keep them as a franchisee.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, I've been in the industry less time than Kieth, but 15 years ago when I started, franchisors very much tried to control that. I don't want my franchisees talking to each other. I don't want them talking without me there. So the more you can do that up front and say, we want to foster that, I think it lends some credibility to you as well, that you're not trying to isolate them, that you're focusing on that community piece.
Hey,
Wonderful.
Michelle, I don't think you were even born when I started in franchise.
Sure, Kieth, you're not that old, but you're very wise. You still look great. Keep it up. Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Thank you. You're very nearsighted.
We'll wrap up the call now. And I once again want to thank you, Kieth, Michelle, for taking your time to speak with us today, share the insights you've got from the data you've pulled together. I want to just do a quick plug for our next event. It's the first Thursday of every month is when we're having these webinar series. We'll have Red Boswell, or the Boz man, will be on our show with a few fellow franchisors in the home services sector. They'll be talking about specifically what they're doing, what the franchisors are doing with IFPG to maximize franchise sales from that network. As we've noted here from Kieth's data, IFPG came in very high, and 6.5% of the leads that are being sent from brokers from IFPG to the brands are closing. And so I think it's really impressive. Join us for that show. I think it's going to be really, really valuable. And thank you for all tuning in.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.